Welcome to the Hot Seat powered by Affordable Staff, David Judge, and here we are at Season 2, Episode 14 of the Hot Seat, where we release a new episode every second Tuesday and talk to industry influencers that have worked hands-on in the real estate industry to find out where these influencers see current and future trends and what you can do about it to support and grow your business. Now today we have another fantastic guest on what is considered to be a fairly controversial subject, artificial intelligence. Yes, we interview Patrick Hill from Realm Australia around all things artificial intelligence and what it will actually mean to the industry as we progress in the future. So a couple of highlights from this episode include Patrick's career in psychology and the natural transition to technology and artificial intelligence. While many people in the industry use the term AI as a marketing ploy when it's really just an advanced software that does what it's told, and the true definition in comparison of AI, the battle of costs going up, fees going down, and the entry of low-cost cookie-cutter service offerings versus high-service flexible solutions. What parts of a property management business is AI looking to replace, and the impact on the human side of the business? The future of property management in 5 years, and while it's critical to look at higher end service to be able to survive. And finally, the change of an acceptable time frame to respond to a query and why the demand has shifted to instant as a result of softwares like Facebook, Google, and Amazon. And of course, because it's AI, there's a special mention of Skynet, of course, in the interview. Now, I really have to agree that the term AI is overused as a buzzword across many industries, and Patrick's company is one of the first actual AI companies to come into real estate that I can see disrupting and at the same time driving the industry forward. On top of that, Patrick is really able to concisely outline where he sees the industry moving in the future and the impacts that AI are going to have. Very, very well thought out person. So it's a really good interview. A little bit scary at times, but yeah, really good interview. So anyway, enough of me. Let's get into it and roll it. Welcome to the Hot Seat powered by Affordable Staff. David here, and we have
Damien
and
Patrick.
Patrick, where are you from?
I'm from Property Realm.
Property Realm. And I understand that, so we're at a conference at the moment. I understand that you're representing artificial intelligence. That's the foundation, or?
It is the foundation.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to go through and ask you a few questions around where you think the industry is right now, disruptors that are coming up, et cetera, in the future, and just have a general conversation around around the property management and real estate space.
Perfect.
Okay, excellent. So can you first of all tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I started my career in psychology.
Psychology? When was that?
That was 2000.
Okay.
You know, and I spent 2 or 3 years in there and found that human beings were incredibly hard to fix.
Yes.
Got a little bit burnt out, and I was working with street kids.
Okay.
Very disenfranchised, neglected children. That was a little bit heartbreaking. And I think I got to the end of that and said, well, look, computers are probably a little bit easier to deal with.
Yes.
And I ended up entering into the IT industry, but had all that basis behind me.
Okay.
And psychology being the father and mother of modern day artificial intelligence and statistical analysis, it was a very quick step into AI for us. AI
is a bit of a buzzword in the industry at the moment.
Yeah.
So what is artificial intelligence? I suppose for me, that's a mystery because, as we were saying before, people seem to think it's perfect straight away. So, what is artificial intelligence?
It's a great question, and I think we need to start with a good definition to start with, because the reality is people use the word AI, and 90% of the time they're not talking about AI.
Yes.
A developer thought it'd be a smart marketing ploy to put AI in front of something and say, yeah, it's AI, but it's really just a query, or it's a database, or it's a process, or it's whatever it is. So I think you got to start from that perspective, and also, some of the buzzwords they use around it, like algorithms, are not necessarily AI either. So artificial intelligence is where you should start from the place of machine learning. Does the machine learn? Does it get smarter over time? And does it use data and some smarts behind it to do something as well, if not better, at scale than a human being?
Yes.
That's really what AI is in our space. So when we talk about AI, we talk about the more in which it talks, because we've got a conversational AI that solves problems within property management.
Okay.
That AI gets smarter over time. As more people talk to it, it gets smarter. And it uses real data, real conversations to understand the intent of the tenant and where they're going with it. Now, you mentioned, is it good? Does it have problems? Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of liken it to a human being.
Yes.
You train a human being. That human being learns new skills. They stumble, they fall, they get smarter, they get better, and over time they become a more rounded, complex individual that can do things better than what they could 2 years ago, or when they were 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old.
Yes.
So that's artificial intelligence in our world. For us, being the market leader in AI for property management, we're the only one doing it at this point in time. I'm sure there'll be others. But our AI was trained over a year, and we used live data and information and conversations from property managers to make sure that we're answering the right questions.
Okay, so you actually developed the app or the software around.
Yep. So all the algorithms and the training and the modeling, and then the outputs to that is all of ours. Yeah.
Do you piggyback off any other technology? Because I noticed that, like for example, Siri on phones. Which people apparently love to hate.
Yeah.
Then you have a look at Google Assist, and Google Assist are incredibly advanced in comparisons to the likes of Siri because of the way in which they learn. Do you piggyback off any other technologies to deliver what you're delivering? Yeah.
So look, ours is conversational AI, but it takes care of the conversation of the tenant, right? And to do that, you need to attend to multi-generational tenants. So fairly shortly, you're going to have 5 generations. And those 5 generations, everything from, retired people, Gen Xers, Ys, Zs, millennials, all the way down, right? And so they're going to want to communicate in many different ways. So we have to piggyback because that's where the communication starts. And you have to communicate with your tenants in the ways in which they want to communicate. Yes. And for the average office, that's a huge load. And it means that there are gaps and things fall between the gaps, right? So we do piggyback off Google Home, Google Mini, Google Assistant, SMS, email, Facebook Messenger. There's a whole lot of series of channels that we allow tenants to talk to the agency. And then we piggyback off the back of the data where it's held. So we're a big supporter of property management software in the sense that we integrate with there to make sure that the information and the solutions and the way in which we provide help to the tenants is 100% accurate, 100% timely, and can be executed straight away. So without that data, we couldn't have our machine learning, we couldn't have our artificial intelligence have the conversation, figure out what it is that they want, and then solve it. So an example of that is, you've got a tenant sitting in the home, they're washing their hands, they've got one kid running around the house like a mad thing, they've got one kid having dinner, we've all been there as parents, they never quite get to the computer to pop it open, to write an email to their property manager and say, look, my tap's leaking, can you come fix it? It's really annoying. Instead of using email, they could go to their Google Mini that's sitting there and say, hey, I've got a broken tap. No problem. Give me some details. Yeah, it looks like this, this, and this. And they're still making dinner and helping their kid across the bench with homework and telling the other kid to go and get his jammies on, whatever it is, right? So it's just an easy medium. So we have to integrate to ask your question. So, that's communication and also database at the end. So Property Me, Property Tree, those kind of softwares. Yeah.
So I suppose what are you seeing as the biggest challenge for real estate agents? And let's talk property management. What are you seeing as the biggest challenge for property management businesses right now in the industry?
Well, you've got obviously that business case for the whole model, right, where costs are going up and fees are going down. There's a race to the bottom, which is being pushed out by a couple of tech firms, tech-enabled firms, that are driving that perception that $100 a month or rates of 3% is sustainable and worthwhile. Now, if you think about business strategy, they are really cookie cuttering. This is what we do, the only way we do it, and you must use our app.
That's right.
A lot of tenants don't want to have another app or another login, that kind of stuff. But if they can force them to use it, they can drive down their costs and automate a certain portion.
Well, it's the exact opposite to the way that the industry is going, where people want to have a unique experience. And when you're putting someone into a cookie cutter experience, that's, it's sort of the opposite. It's anti-intuitive in some ways, do you think?
I think it's a little bit, it's a little bit like the sales models that came in that have now closed down.
Yes.
Where it's cookie cutter, it's not very high service, the outcome's not great, but a certain percentage of the industry will respond to it because they want to cut their costs. They want to be at that low end. And so in strategy terms, they're low option, low service, low everything, and also low cost. So you only get that small little quadrant that takes it up, and it'll be the same with those guys. They will take out a certain portion. And then you've got other property management firms that are going high service, high flexibility, turnkey solutions. You want to just do the open homes, we'll do the open homes for you. You just want to have the maintenance done by us, we'll do the maintenance for you. And we heard that from one of the property management teams this morning, that she talked about. We offer concierge service at each stage, which you can just turn on a service offering. I know Toop and Toop are doing that down in Adelaide as well.
Yes.
They're moving to a more turnkey solution. So look, I think that there are different strokes for folks. I think that there are some really smart, high growth, highly capable organisations that are now able to offer really great services that just delight above and beyond. And they use a blended approach. So they might start with high automation on the front end. They might then go into AI and use something like ours to take care of that communication stuff. Then they might use offshore staff to scale those elements that are more complex, that need somebody actually on it and just doing it really well, so nothing falls between the cracks.
Yeah, and we had a couple of clients I'm aware of that came to us and said, "Hey, this AI thing, is it going to put you out of business?" I was like,
No chance.
No.
The short answer is no.
Yeah, supporting technologies.
But because I think they have to work side by side,
Yes.
right? Because the human factor is required in a human endeavor. And property management, sales, real estate is a human endeavor.
Yes.
It's the human connection that really makes a difference to the experience. I think that there's room for AI to automate in a really sophisticated way a portion of monotonous tasks that are repetitive, that don't really need human interaction, and
Yes.
the customer will decide that in a lot of cases, not all. And then there's an element of automation that comes out of systems execution that is valuable as well, and that's the computerized approach to certain things, right? So you got automation, and then you got AI that sits on top of that. And I think that's just where it's going in a lot of industries. I think there's going to be a huge advantage to scale your operation and to cut costs by using artificial intelligence. And we're seeing that now, and certainly all of our customers are coming on board are saying, well, this works in this part of what we do. It takes care of the communication strategy for those 5 generations. But at the same time, that means that our staff can be freed up from the transactional, because transactional doesn't add value to the growth or the strategic positioning of my company. What it does, it enables my team to go out and have human conversations.
Yes.
Where we pick up the phone and we say, hey, I understand you've had a few issues with paying your rent. Can I help? What's going on? What do you need from us? You pick up the phone to your landlord and you say, hey, I understand that we've done this, or you've had a couple of unexpected charges this month, and I really want to help you through this. We're going to try and get you better quotes. What do you think about this? How can we help you here? And that extra kind of human touch. Nothing that an AI is going to do, right? You're not going to have an AI picking up the phone and having that human connection, which understands that they've got kids in private school and they didn't expect these charges coming in, and they've got another mortgage that's coming due, and they're in the middle of a build over here, which means everything's really tight and you need our help. Right, so there's human connections that are necessary that AI is just not going to do.
So from a take-up perspective, about 4 years ago is where we really started attending conferences and starting to push out mainstream, we call it that. There was a lot of fear when we first started. I think that there were people that used to cover their faces when they're walking past our booth or when they were near us, because it was just like, you're going to destroy our jobs or take away our jobs.
away.
Yeah.
Sure.
How are you finding? Because you're fairly new into the space, would you say? How are you finding
so
that?
in terms of the space, in terms of real estate, we started a little over a year ago in terms of we released an app that was built in collaboration with the Institutes of Australia, that is a Twitter style feed that has 50 publishers of information where people can just get it, and that's called the Industry app, and it's on any type of device, mobile device only, you get from the App Store. And so we worked fairly closely with industry bodies to figure out what that looks like. So there's video and training and updates and legislation and a whole lot of stuff that hits your feed. And there's also a whole lot of data that comes into there that says, look at this. You've got 5 new properties that came up in your area that you operate in, and 3 got sold, and whatever it is. So it gives them insights. So we had a really good exposure to the industry from that perspective. And that's a free app, download from the App Store, that we did. But that gave us a little bit of context as to how the industry would respond to new technology. And I take your point. There is some out there, like you talk about AI and how that automation works and how it's going to remove them from a couple of the different processes that makes them more efficient. And that's
Skynet.
Yeah, Skynet, right? Like, the Terminator is coming.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's a real fear for some people, right?
One of the things, what is AI? That's my experience. That's my vision of AI. That it is Skynet.
I think the best way to answer this without being too technical is there's 2 types of AI right now. Okay, there's the specific AI, and then there's general purpose AI. And specific AI is what we have. It's what the majority of people have. When you talk about AI right now, there are learning algorithms that run your Facebook feed, that run your Netflix recommendations.
Yes.
And then your daughter gets on there and watch some teenager type film, and all of a sudden they think you like Barbies, and you're getting all these weird movies, and I'm like, you ruined my feed, which is ultimately very frustrating. But some of them are really smart, some of them work really well. but none of them can learn beyond the boundaries of what they've been given to do. So it's a little bit likened to if you taught a child to crawl and it was a specific AI, that child would only learn how to crawl. They'd get faster at crawling, they'd get better at crawling, but they couldn't then transition that skill into other things. Whereas a general purpose AI could turn around, you could teach a child to crawl, and from there, they could become an Olympic, athlete.
Yes.
Doing all sorts of disciplines, right? And so that's general purpose AI. The big fear that Elon Musk and others have is that general purpose AI will take over. So if you look at DeepMind, which is this race to general purpose AI, Google bought it for $500 million US, and they've probably invested another 500 million, maybe $1 billion into it.
Yeah.
And you've got IBM Watson, they're doing a similar thing. They're all racing towards this general purpose AI because what it means is you can teach it one or two things, and through a reinforced learning net, it can learn over time new skills that had nothing to do with the original intent, right? And so they've put it into their data centers and cut costs on computers and heat and managing the power by 20-30%.
Yes.
And so they've got a general purpose AI that does that. That general purpose AI, in its first iteration, could learn an arcade game in 8 hours, what would take a human being 10 years to get that good at, and still beat the human, right? And they can learn anything. They've taught it to learn, AlphaGo, which is their implementation of the Go platform. And that game, I don't know if you know anything about it, it's quite an interesting game. You can't really explain why the best are the best at it. It's billions of possibilities. It's really intuitively based. And the AI beat the best in the world from Korea and did it in very little time. And that was phenomenal because every other AI in the past has struggled and they ultimately collapsed under the options, under the ability to do it.
Yes.
Human beings were always better. And so that was a critical mark for general purpose AI that's being developed. We don't operate in that space. We're very specific AI. We do one thing. We do property management. It's conversational and it's very, very dictated roles. So what can you do? There's 48 skills it can do right now. There's 4 new skills every week. That's everything from answer how much rent you owe to, I've got a leaking tap. Can you go fix it? Yeah, I can talk to the plumber for you and get that done. And based on some rules, I can go away and figure out what to do to fix that problem. But general purpose AI is really exciting.
So what do you see as the biggest disruptors in the next 2 years?
Do you see yourselves as the biggest disruptors?
I think that AI will be a disruptor. I really do. I don't know that it'll be any bigger disruptor than offshore outsourcing. I think that the industry will adjust very quickly to it, and they'll redirect their staff to less transactional and more, human interfaces. I think that it'll work really nicely side by side with real estate, particularly if it's a self-disrupting platform.
Yes.
What I mean by that is that, the agents and agencies use it for their advantage in the industry and for their ability to provide higher service levels. And that's really where I think the change is going to happen. I think that real estate will move away from these old models where they're the disintermediary, where they're sitting there and they are receiving requests and they're transactioning those requests and they're pushing them out, and that's their value. The value is going to have to be very much in the service-orientated space, providing high-level services. And they're going to need to leverage outsourcing and AI and all of these kind of things to do that.
And that's where the return on investment is really not so much in the process-driven stuff that AI can handle, an outsourced team member can handle, being in front of people, that human-to-human interaction.
Transactions are commoditized when you've got systems that can execute it for you. So that commodity is not valuable at all.
Yes.
And then it becomes about scale. Macquarie Bank came out with a report that said 2/3 or thereabouts of property management roles will cease to exist within the next 5 to 10 years. I think that's an aggressive projection, but I can see the trend happening now, and a lot of people can. There will be this, convergence to the bigger and the better and the ones who can scale effectively and provide quality services. And so the race on right now is for property management rent roles to move towards a higher end service and to grow quickly.
Yes.
And they're the ones who will weather the storm. And the way they're going to do that is through artificial intelligence and having appropriate systems. Now, the biggest impediment to that I see is that there's only really 1.5, almost 2 property management software platforms that have an open API. 15, 20 years ago, Salesforce and others like it redefined technology basis where they said, we'll have an API that opens up all your data because it's your data, Mr. Customer, and your strategy, your differentiation, your ability to get new customers should be how you run your business, and then technology falls in behind it because you've got flexibility. You can do what you want with your system. You can tack on whatever you want. You can create value in every way you want, rather than right now, the technology is defining the flexibility and ability to scale their businesses. And so you've got a lot of people now pushing to make that a reality on other fronts. I think that there are a number of platforms. I know that Property Tree is developing their own open API, and it's in beta right now, and we've got access to it, and it's starting to look really good. You've got Scotty Wolf in Adelaide, in WA, who is creating Vault RE, and Vault RE is an API first, and it's going to have both sides of the equation, sales plus property management. So that's an interesting new entrant to the marketplace. So a big disruptor on the technology front is going to be this open API, and the ones who do it are going to get a lot of convergence, and we're seeing that with Property Me now. They're taking a lot of traction in the marketplace. I think that the others will have to follow, and they are starting to, and they're doing it. And then it comes a question of flexibility and service levels within those companies. So the traditional players like Rockend and Property Tree, who provide a higher end of service at times to others, do they get the traction back to move back into their open API?
Yeah, it's interesting watching that transition when you see the server-based softwares all those years ago, and then the transitioning across the cloud. It's like watching MYOB versus Xero.
Right.
It's just a total chalk and cheese.
And it's amazing that this industry hasn't got there quicker.
Yes.
And I've actually spoken to some software houses. They turn around and say, mate, you don't have an open API. And they go, well, we do internally, and we just select who we give it to. I said, what's that selective? They go, well, we select it based on whether it adds value to us. So effectively, you're hamstringing your customers and their flexibility and ability to run their business in any way they like by restricting their ability to use third-party products. It's their data. And I have this argument every day with property management software owners. It's a hard argument, but I think that a lot of customers are now becoming more technologically capable, where they can turn around and go, hey, this is what I want. This is where I want to go. I want to be flexible. I want to be able to scale. I want to own my own data. I want to add marketing platforms and execution automation and offshoring, and it has to be in the cloud, and it has to be open API so I can execute. I want to run analytics on my data that shows me what my performance level is for each person across the entire stack. So now I can do continuous improvement. I can look at my system and I go, 1, 2, 3 is a big issue for me. I spend the most amount of time in there. I have the most amount of complaints. Like 80% of all complaints that we reviewed could have been avoided by better communication.
Yes.
And the reasons for them not having great communication could be that it fell between the cracks. They were overloaded with work. It hit them in email form instead of coming into their property management software, so they could track it and see it as a job. There's a whole lot of reasons why they missed that. And so unless you've got a dedicated staff member who's sitting there looking at that inbox and going, yep, add that to a job. Yep, add that to a workflow. And you would see this with your team. You would have dedicated people sitting there going, we need to make sure that not a single thing falls through the cracks, because that's service level, our net presence score.
And that's really changed for us, hasn't it? Without getting too deep into the whole outsourcing thing, but that's really changed for us, for people that are managing that type of task. It's changed where there used to be an acceptable time frame for you to respond, but that time frame is really reduced to
whatever Google says.
Right, because we're not competing in an open marketplace. Now today expectations change so much. We're not competing, even as a technology provider or as a service provider, you're not competing with the other service provider or with the other agency. Expectations are being set by Google and Facebook and Amazon, where you can make an order and like 12 hours later, it's on your front step. Like you make an order on the way to work, and when you get home, it's there. I mean, you've seen the blimp idea by Amazon, where they've patented a blimp idea where it goes up in the sky, it hovers over major cities. There'll be about 200 of them. You'll be on Amazon, you'll say, hey, Alexa, I need basil for dinner. You're in the middle of cooking dinner. And a little drone comes out of the blimp and it delivers basil to your front window, and you take it out and there's your basil for making your spag bowl.
Yes.
That's instantaneous reward. It's making sure that you're being serviced, and that's who we're competing against now. So if you've got a millennial and Gen Z and they say, hey, I've got a broken tap, and you don't come back for 12 hours because you're in an open home and you're really busy and you're in a conference and you had 50 other different maintenance tasks, and you don't respond, they're like, I am so pissed off.
That's right.
And their world's melting down because you didn't respond to them quickly. And that creates another level of support and appeasing them and making sure they're okay, and conflict resolution and stress and cultures change. More work, right? And so it's got a cascading effect. So that's where we saw big value in the AI responding immediately, solving everything we can solve, and where we can't solve it, saying to them, no worries, we'll put that into a job. Property management is going to get back to you immediately. And then
that was the thing that we saw yesterday in Ever's talk, which was she was talking about that quote from Amy,
Yep.
where now it's what was
Instant
it?
coffee.
Instant coffee.
Instant
It's
coffee.
too slow.
It's too slow, and it just
Right.
yeah.
You know.
And the idea of having to wait for a jug to boil now is unacceptable.
Yeah, and I did it this morning. I turned on my Nescafe in my room, put in a pod, and I pressed it, and it went straight away. The morning before, it wasn't switched on before I went and did it, and I had to wait 30 seconds for it to heat up. And I was like, wow, 30 seconds for my coffee.
First world problem.
Right. You're like, get a grip.
Yes.
It's not that bad.
Now, before we do go to the ad break, because I can see we're ticking by in time, and it's a very interesting conversation around the AI stuff, and it's a the deeper you go, you know.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole.
What special advice would you give to somebody within the real estate industry where it stands right now and moving into the future?
Well, I think that, if I just talk about the space we've been talking about, if you're not on cloud-based software, if you don't have an open API that you can tack in other things, you're effectively standing there with your hands chained behind your back as a business. You have lost flexibility, capability, agility, all the good things you need in a modern day rent roll to grow, to execute, to provide better service, to differentiate from the 25 other offices down the road.
Yes.
You've missed the boat, and the boat is getting so far away, it's a dot. Right? So, if you haven't already done that, that's the first thing you need to do. And it's not that people go, it's so hard and I'm so busy, and work on your business. Like, this is this idea of working on your business, not in your business. You might be a selling principal and you might ignore property management, or you might just be so overloaded with work. Stop thinking about the 15 things on your list. Carve out 15% of time to work on your business and make it a priority. Your staff need to increase or improve your business by 1% every week, and then make it 1% every day. And if they're doing things to make it better 1%, then in 220 days, which is a work year, you will be so much better than you used to be. That's the one thing they need to do. And the best thing they can do is move over to a cloud-based software that has an open API, and then they have options in staffing solutions, options in executing their business, options in marketing. The whole lot can just fall in behind that one platform. And that was a technology strategy from 30 years ago.
Yes.
UPS coined it, right? They did a really smart job. They had one data system that ran their entire UPS network, and now they've got fantastic service levels off the back of that.
Exactly. Many clients still on server based?
Yeah. There's a couple.
There's 3,000 still on Rock and Rest, right? That's huge. How many in your industry? Like 8 to 10,000 offices, depending on which ones you count.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. No. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Let's go to a break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to turn up the lights, turn up the heat, and put you on the hot seat, and then we'll see what happens from there. Sounds good?
Like fun.
Excellent.
Let's do it.
Let's
Cheers.
come back in a second. Okay, welcome back to the hot seat, powered by Affordable Staff. We're back here now for the hot seat. Can you feel the heat?
I can feel it. You're making me nervous.
That's right. That's the whole point. I think when we joke about it, about making people cry, but it's really not a joke.
People have cried.
I cried.
Okay, so
That's just from hitting you because you're in striking distance.
I actually really like this bit because I get to sit back and not do anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're just going to go through and ask a series of questions, and then fairly short responses.
Sure.
And if you can't think of a response for anything, you can pass.
Yep.
And then we can come back to it, or we'll see how we go. Sound good?
Sure.
Okay, fantastic. So, number one bucket list item.
Sail around Europe on a catamaran.
Strangest
With
thing
my
you've
family.
ever eaten.
Dog
Dog.
in Indonesia.
Haven't had that before.
It was an
I've had that
accident.
before.
Yeah. Strangest place you ever visited.
Oh, foothills of the Pyrenees, meeting a local guy and his goat as a goat herder.
Why was it strange?
It was unexpected, and I didn't speak a lick of French, and so I went back to his home, and he brought me in for a soup up the mountain, and we had a really interesting night together, but we didn't speak any language.
Oh, that would
So
have
it
been very
was,
interesting.
him and his wife.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Pass.
How do you spend the first 3 hours of your day?
Coffee, walking the dog, answering emails.
Favorite drink?
Capriosca.
Something interesting nobody knows about you.
Nobody knows.
Does everybody know about the 50-meter?
I like to free dive. We just did a deep dive week.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
That's-
down to 50 meters is my limit at the moment.
How's the pressure at 50 meters?
You equalize single breath, so there's no tanks. You just hold your breath and go down. Yeah, so down a line.
There you go. Would you prefer to be invisible or to be able to fly?
Fly.
A mistake that's ended up being a success.
Falling into IT.
Biggest non-negotiable.
Integrity.
Morning or night.
Night.
Weapon of choice.
Oof. Intellect.
I would have said data. Love data. Biggest fear.
Sorry?
Biggest fear.
Not living a full life.
If you weren't doing what you were doing now, what would you be doing?
I'd probably still be a psychologist.
This is interesting for me, actually. University or School of Hard Knocks?
Hard knocks.
What advice would you give to an 18-year-old version of you?
Take the risk.
Fridays or Mondays?
Fridays.
One item you could not live without?
Wow.
Yeah, see, I told you. Yeah.
Pass.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Last question. How much money is enough?
Enough to enjoy your family and the road that you're on.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I actually saw a few sweat beads forming.
Now I need to go and think about those questions and response and post-analyze and think, why did you answer that way?
Yeah, that's
You got me thinking.
Yes, excellent. Well, fantastic. So we're at that point now where you can basically go through and give us a shameless plug of your business or what you have going on right now that you'd like to share with everybody. So now that we've grilled you, what would you like to share?
Yeah, wow. Thanks for that opportunity. I'm sweating. I'm not sure I can do it. No.
That's right.
Look, I think that, there's, if you see value in automating a large percentage of the work that you do, and we're talking 40%, that AI can take care of right now today in property management so that you can have human connections, so you can do great service offerings to make yourself a better service offering in the market. I think just give us a call. I'm happy to talk through it. It's a really easy onboarding and we're happy to support in the industry.
Fantastic. Best way for someone to get in contact with you? What you were going to say.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
gonna say.
look, if you go to our website, propertyrealm, realm.com.au, there is a booker demo
Yes.
on there, and it hooks straight into my calendar, and I will be the one that runs you through what we do. Yeah.
Excellent. Fantastic, Patrick. Really appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you for coming on. Thank you for taking the journey on the hot seat,
Thanks for
especially because of your history in the industry.
thanks for grilling me. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. And thank you, everybody. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Hot Seat.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode with Patrick. And before you go, I'd ask if you enjoyed the episode that you subscribe to our podcast, which you can find if you search for The Hot Seat, where you listen to your podcast, especially on Spotify and Apple. I also wanted to remind you that The Hot Seat is powered by affordable staff, and if I am 100% honest, we couldn't put The Hot Seat together without outsourcing. There's so much background work that goes into creating a podcast. For anybody who's actually created one before, you know what I'm talking about. And we couldn't do this without outsourcing it to our overseas team. I mean, seriously, I record the content and I send it offshore, where they handle the video, the audio edits, the website, the podcast distribution, the marketing, and so much more. So thank you to our team in the Philippines. Okay, that's it. Thank you again for all of your support. Thank you for, the feedback that we're getting around the hot seat. And I look forward to talking to you in the next episode of The Hot Seat.